You're listening to World of Empowerment Radio, your station for practical spirituality in a changing world. And here are your hosts, Angel Rose and Ahanu.
Well, you're very welcome. This is Ahanu, and with me is my lovely Angel Rose again.
I'm glad I'm your lovely Angel Rose.
You are. And you know, that's spelled L-O-V-E-L-Y, lovely.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Because it's full of love. Now, that's the subject of our conversation today. We're going to be speaking to a wonderful lady up in Canada called Aliana Alani, and she has a wonderful blog called 22 Shangri-La. And we will be speaking to her all about love. But before we bring her on, though, I just want to put people on notice in the sense that we have been finding a lot of things in turmoil in the last couple of weeks. And we ourselves have been going through kind of a strange place. And in some ways it's a good thing in the sense that it's shaking things up, and we find ourselves looking to get on track and get into the core values and look at what really is going on and find truth and all that kind of thing. But what seems to be coming through all of that is that love is the constant, whereas everything else is up in all over the place. Do you find the same thing, Angel Rose?
Well, I think, yes, absolutely. And I think that we're at a very critical time, I feel, in our world right now, in our spirituality, where the decisions that we make and what we decide to focus on are critical.
Yeah, and what you entertain in your mind on a day-to-day basis.
It is true.
Yeah.
And I know when things get very difficult and people are having trouble and they're struggling, it's very difficult to remember, really, that you have this choice, that you can choose love over fear. And but I find right now you need to keep choosing that and keeping your head in that place.
In every moment.
Yeah, and your heart in that place as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, I remember growing up, it was always a difficult thing for me to constantly be checking your thoughts. It was such an effort to be always trying to be aware of every thought you had, because you drive yourself crazy. But now it seems it's actually more critical to really be aware of those thoughts in every moment.
It is.
Because you can go off on tangents and be thinking all kinds of judgments and crazy things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very easy to do that nowadays, isn't it, with all the politics and all the other things going on?
Now, do you remember, Angel Rose, it's probably about 2 years ago now, we had Aliana Alani on the show, and we were talking about her website and what she does, and the beautiful poetry she writes, and the wonderful mandala type pictures she does, and all of that. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. So it's an absolute delight to have her back on the show again, and today we're specifically talking about love and her recent experiences around that too. Aliana, are you there?
I am indeed.
Oh, you're
Hi,
very
Aliana. Welcome.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
I'm just smiling like crazy at the other end of the line. It always gives me such joy to hear an Irish accent.
Yes,
You're not the only woman who thinks that, Aliana.
Well, you did. Remind
yeah.
our
Well,
listeners.
When you've lived there for a long time and then you don't live there anymore, it brings fond memories back. You know?
Yes, I'm sure.
Yeah, remind our listeners. You did spend some time in Ireland, didn't you?
I did indeed. I lived there for a number of years. Yeah, I did. In the heart of the garden.
In the heart of the Garden of Ireland.
Garden
that's
of
right.
Ireland. County Wicklow.
And then you live in Canada now,
Wicklow.
so you brought some of that Irish charm with you.
I think it sort of clutched onto me and never really left.
Okay, bring us up to speed with what you've been doing since we spoke last, and help our listeners understand where you're coming from when you tackle this subject of love.
Well, I was listening to your introduction, and I thought, my Lord, has it been actually 2 years? For some reason, I think it's shorter than that, but it doesn't really matter. Time just seems to fly these days. A lot of things. Some of what we were talking about before is, of course, very, very constant, and that is some of the geometry work and the helping people in terms of sessions and so on. But But I think we are all, and I was listening to what you were saying, Uncle Rose, and I think it's so true. The world is so incredibly, on one level, let's put it that way, on one level of the picture, the world is so incredibly topsy-turvy. Mm-hmm. And it feels sometimes as though everything that has been happening, especially in the last 6 months, has just been like somebody pulled the plug on our discernment levels, and all this stuff is just spewing forth. And we react to it more than we listen and think and then act from a deeper place. So it's so easy, I think, on one level to be caught up in that kind of tsunami energy.
Yes.
And to suddenly find yourself acting from it. Because, of course, we all have light and shadow within us. We all have both sides of the spectrum. And what we choose to express or how we choose to work through both of them, are constant, as you say. But what I've also found is that there is also, and has been, a building energy of love in the world, people talking about it, people being a part of it, and so on. Mm-hmm. What it seems to me is that in the last 3 to 4 weeks, that building energy is suddenly also making itself vocal in a way that I don't personally feel it has necessarily done before in mainstream society. In a way that's very out there, that's very commonplace almost.
Give us a few examples of that.
And is speaking of it.
Yeah, tell us what you mean. Give us a few examples. Tell us what you mean.
Well, a turning point for me was that Orlando had happened, as devastating as that was.
Yes.
And it was. And it was very much about people's right to love. And so, a lot of sorrow and sadness coming up with that, a lot of anger, of course, as well. And I was on Facebook I only have a connection with friends, and someone had posted something they had shared, and it was a thing that had gone viral, and it was the Tony Awards, and it was the man who had won an award for creating the Broadway show Hamilton. And in accepting it, very emotional, very beautiful man, he ended up by saying, in response to Orlando, basically, love is love is love is love is love is love is love. In other words, it's just love. That's all it is.
Yes.
It's everything.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have a parameter that says you can only love over there, and you can only love with this person or that person, or you can only love via this group or that group.
Right.
And so, I mean, I too was very touched by this. Everybody was in tears. And then I listened to Colbert later, Stephen Colbert's show, and he was more contained with it, but he ended up with words of love. And I had a kind of epiphany. I had this sort of inner shiver. And I thought, oh my God, I think we are finally at a place in society where we can actually speak of love as a turning point agent for change.
And what makes it different, Aliana, than before? I mean, there's always been love in the world, really, and
of course there has. Yes. And, sages and prophets and messiahs have been talking about it forever. We know that. Mm-hmm. But we don't always listen. Or we listen in tiny terms instead of big terms. And we take little steps instead of big steps. We are a species, I think, that deeply, on the core level, deeply desires love, deeply craves to be loved, deeply wants to share love, and somewhere also very deeply knows that love is the answer to everything. Mm-hmm. But then the small self comes in, the personality comes in, the judgments come in, the societal habits come in that we have been taught, and our fears come in. And so we often stay very small with it and very personal rather than very spiritual and very unconditional.
Well, I think, too,
I think we're at a point.
Yeah, I think we are at a point, too, where we're either going to, succumb to all the hatred and the division and the belief in separateness, or we're going to make the choice to accept and love everything. Now that to me, Chris, in my own opinion, love is inclusive. It doesn't exclude. And we have found, even doing healings that go way back in time, whatever's left undone is because everything wants acceptance at some level. And I have to be clear, I'm not saying we need to tolerate abuse or murder or things like that. That's not what I'm talking about. But I'm talking about in terms of how you perceive somebody and how you look at it has a whole lot to do with what energy we continue to put into the universe in terms of, what are we creating? Because it has to be, like you put it very well when you said that, it's all love. Because the truth is everyone wants to be loved. Everyone wants to be loved and accepted. And no matter how off the deep end someone has become, it's still true that at the core, somewhere within them is a voided experience of love. So, to me, we have this decision to make every single moment, with the conversations that fly by, with the stuff that's posted on Facebook, with everything that's going on in the world, with the judgment game. How are we going to perceive those that seem to be enemies to love? And I think that that's really the issue, because the choice is now.
Yeah, I think the choice is now, and I think the another evolutionary layer of this, if you will, is that just like it is with peace or understanding or any of the qualities we talk about in terms of ways of life, that we are at the point where we are ultimately, let's peel the onion skin, we are ultimately asking of ourselves to be the love that we seek. We are asking ourselves to recognize that we are the one we are searching for. In other words, we're asking ourselves to go to the heart of the eternal, where when we talk, at least those who perceive themselves to be very spiritual and on a spiritual path, consciously, we talk about wanting to go home. We talk about wanting to return to all that matters to us. Well, really, we're talking, I feel, about wanting to come back to the heart of everything. And the heart of everything is the eternal energy. It is love. But it isn't a conditional love. It is a vibration of love. It is a frequency, a harmonic of love. And to come home to that so that we become all of it again within ourselves, and then we have that immense capacity to share and to be part of something else. I think in terms also of what you're saying, in terms of what we choose all the time, to simplify it, do we choose to be kind to each other? People say, well, how can I love? Do we choose to be kind? We have that within us every moment. Do we choose to be compassionate with each other? But then, and someone was saying this to me very recently in a discussion, that someone in the States, and the Dalai Lama had been there recently, and if I remember what was shared with me correctly, that one of the key comments in his speaking to people was the necessity of self-compassion. We're back to loving ourselves as well. Will we open that door to ourselves, and will we love again? So I think, yes, as we're paying attention to what we're choosing to look at or speak of or say or think all the time, is just this overall directive, if you will, because I think, Ohana, you're right. It can seem so all-consuming to be constantly having to think about what you're thinking about. Is there not another level of that can be reached? And is that level perhaps the overall directive within self that I choose love? And I call on that which is larger than me, however you perceive that, to share with me the ability to be that resonance of love in every moment of my life.
What you're effectively saying is that we're seeing more and more demonstrations of love out there in the in the world, in coming through artists and coming through musicians and coming to us in different ways. Maybe that's what's changing, that there's people are not as afraid to express this sentiment, let's call it. They're not afraid to express it openly. Is that what you're saying?
I think that, I think so. I think that's very true. I think there are, and I think that's the thing to remember in all the chaos, is that, yes, here's this swarm, and it is like a swarm, here's a swarm of chaos.
Yeah.
And it looks like a tsunami that's going to take you over any second and sweep you away into the, into the universal garbage, if you will.
Yes.
But there is also this other wave, and it is a wave of pure love.
Yeah.
And it is coming through the hearts and minds of people. Mm-hmm. And through more people. There is that daring, if you will, to say, I know it's all out there. I know it. But here's the one thing that works to me. Here's the one thing that works.
Yeah. Yeah. Certainly we have found over our time together, Angel Rose and I, and our work with people all over the world, that we're finding more and more men are more willing to express themselves honestly, and they're being very courageous in expressing that feminine aspect of themselves. We're finding it in every twist and turn, in any meeting we go to, any lectures, anything we do. We're finding that men are certainly being very courageous in that field. And there was speaking of Facebook, there was some little clip of what do you call it? I think it was a gay rights march in London or something, and there was a policeman who was on duty there, and he marched across and came up to his colleague, all dressed in uniform, on duty, and actually proposed to him right there in front of all the crowds and in front of
I saw the edges of that.
Yeah. Now, I have to say that, that must have taken enormous courage. Really.
Yeah.
And some people, you might look at that and say that was very foolish, maybe he risked his career and all the rest on that side of it. But to me, I thought it was an enormously courageous thing to do, because he was expressing love is what he was doing.
Absolutely, and I think that's the other thing that's coming up, is if we believe, if in our heart of hearts somewhere we know that love is the answer, and it is. I have a thing that I post on 22 Shangri-La as my sign-off all the time now, and it's love is the answer, always has been, always will be. And it's true. So if we know that, we are indeed asking of ourselves to be courageous and loving now.
Right. Yeah.
To even step, yes, to love personally, yes, to love the person next to you, less, to shake the hands of somebody you don't know and actually mean it, to be willing to cut people some slack now and give them room to grow and prosper. The other interesting analogy, and we talked last time about my perception of the garden, is that a garden needs tending.
Right.
It needs seeds planted. It needs to be watered. It needs tending. It needs the weeds plucked. It needs to be told you love it and, oh my goodness, how beautiful you are. It needs these things.
Yes.
And our world is a garden.
Yes.
And it needs it as well.
Yes, yeah. Let's take a quick little studio break here and remind our listeners we're speaking with Aliana Alani, who has a wonderful website called 22 Shangri-La, based in Canada, spent some time in Ireland, and really writes some beautiful, beautiful poetry and creates beautiful works of art. So we will put that link at the bottom of our podcast, but stay with us. We'll be right back after this break.
And Gail Rose and Ahanu are a twin flame couple who devote their lives to helping you grow in spiritual awareness in an awakening world. Drawing on over 50 years of combined experience and expertise in self-mastery and ascension mechanics, they bring practical spirituality into a fast-changing world so you can find truth and inner happiness. Anne Gale's spiritual journey began when she was just 19 after the tragic death of her first husband 3 months after their wedding. She dedicated herself to finding the answers to the deepest spiritual questions by journeying into the mysteries of the spirit world while exploring consciousness and its expansive potential. She spent years meditating and being taught by Archangel Raphael, who took her on many journeys into other worlds and planes of existence. Today, Anne Gale teaches her unique home study course on how to read Akashic records, transformational writing, beginner through advanced tarot, as well as authoring the books A Time of Change and The Nature of Reality, both transcripts from the Akashic records. After the death of his firstborn son, Ryan Columbus, Ahanu wrote his epic work, The Reincarnation of Columbus, an Amazon #1 bestseller available from Amazon.com and the reincarnationofcolumbus.com. With his past in the oil field and computer industries behind him, but with grief and pain as grist for his soul, he practiced transcendental meditation to Siddha-level awareness, unfolding his life as a visionary artist and spiritual teacher. He started his first organic holistic health farm in Ireland in 1993, which continues to this day as Holistic, i.e. importing raw, vegan, health force nutritionals for the Irish market. He founded the World of Empowerment organization and the Spirit of Love project in 2009, offering a new dimension of spiritual and ancestral healing with his spiritual artwork. Ahanu's wide range of well-known metaphysical ebooks have been published on Amazon, and his artist portfolio website, ahanu.com, showcases hundreds of his spirit art, which are also available on fineartamerica.com. Ahanu is an author, artist, and motivational speaker, intuitive personal and business coach, publisher and radio host of the Honest to God series. Together, Ahanu and Anne Gale Rose have held workshops in manifesting, self-healing, working with homeopathic color remedies, beginner through advanced tarot, visionary art, psychic surgery, quantum jumping, how to read the Akashic records, and more. Through their weekly online Akashic Record Group sessions, podcasts, workshops, retreats, and private business consulting, they have empowered thousands of people worldwide. For further information or to arrange an interview, book signing, speaking engagement, attend a workshop or home study course, or order a Spirit of Love painting or Akashic Records reading, please contact them from their website at worldofempowerment.com. That's all one word, worldofempowerment.com, or by phone in the USA at 224-588-8026.
We're back now. Welcome back to the show with Aliana, and we are talking about love, and that love is all there is, and love is really all that's real. And how do we express love, and how comfortable are we with loving ourselves and loving each other? And, you know, many random works of kindness make a huge difference. And, you know, Hannah, I just want to say, you know, we go to this group every Tuesday morning in Bend, Oregon. It's over a little bookstore where a group of people get together and we discuss all sorts of spiritual topics. And one of the main things, though, that holds people together there is that we allow each other to be who we are. We allow each other to speak from their hearts and talk about all sorts of things, and, you know, even come up with solutions and share. But it's it's often said that wouldn't it be wonderful if you could just multiply that experience out into the world where everybody was from that frame of mind, you know?
Yes, yeah.
And
without judgment, without criticism.
Yes, without this division. But I want to say this part, Aliana, in talking about this, one of the things that I notice myself is that I do have a difficulty with hugs. And
H-U-G-S.
H-U-G-S.
Hugs,
okay, as an expression of love.
Yes.
You know, there's a lot of people that, especially in this group, they all want to hug one another. And I'm not such a great hugger. I mean, I do hug people that I love and care about. But I have a difficulty when it comes to strangers or people that I don't know well, and a lot of emphasis is put on that, unfortunately, where, well, if you can't hug, there's something wrong with you. And I just think, no, I can surely feel incredible love for someone and be in unity with them without having to hug them. But it's just an area where I have a little bit of trouble. And certainly that whole love yourself first is a huge thing. And remember, Ahanu, that Akashic Record group we did where Source was talking to us all about loving ourselves.
Yes.
And talking about how we're living in mediocrity. And what was needed was definitely a step up to, what did it say? Love has high standards. Okay?
Yes.
And I knew what it meant by that, because it was saying that we haven't even approached the highest level of expressing love or loving ourselves. And I think some of this has to do with maybe what we're witnessing now is the breakdown of all sorts of dogmas. Okay, like, even when you speak of the gay people finally being able to marry and coming out and being able to express their love, like you just mentioned with the policeman, coming out in public and having the right to do that. And so we're watching the reactions to that, but we're watching the reactions to the breakdown of all kinds of belief systems. And, some people are all right with it, other people are having a huge difficulty. And I think that's part of what's surfacing now as well with the events that are going on in the world. But I do think it is a purification. We have to get past that, because ultimately, and how many times have the records said love is the answer as well?
Yes. I wanted to ask you, from where you are now, because you're observing this, you're witnessing this, and you're sensitive enough to be able to see it and to understand what's going on in the big picture, as it were. Tell us, do you think that the world is ready for it? In other words, are we arriving at that place where it's like tipping of the scales?
Yeah, I actually think we are. I think we are. I think we have been brewing and moving towards it. Yes, we could all have quantum leaped a long time ago, and some have. You generally don't see them too much. But they certainly have quantum leaped, and we can all do that. But there is a general tendency to kind of move slowly with things like this. And so we've been working towards it for quite a long time. There's also been a huge tendency from the status quo of life, the way the story has been for some time, to want to ensure its existence. So, of course, when you get close to the edge of the tipping scale, that which is about to tip away screams loudest, right, to sound like it's still very much in play. So that's going on. But yeah, I do think that we are at this place where it won't take too much more before we actually tip the scales and move into what I call a critical mass.
Right. And
so I think that everything that we choose to do around loving right now is of value. And I mean, I've got a thing that I put out around Sundays, which I'd like to share with you later. But the other thing that came to mind when I was listening to what you were saying, Uncle Rose, was as the world gets crazier, and there will be a part of it that does, no doubt, and things fall away, things that for so many of us have seemed the things we could count on, the things that were secure, whether it's house or family or job or government or religious philosophy or anything else. As those things tip away, I think the thing for us to perhaps the most compassionate thing we might be able to do is to recognize that we're all profoundly vulnerable in those moments. And when we are very vulnerable, we're also often very fearful. And we do things and we say things that are not coming from the heart of who we are as much as they are from the fear of what we hold. And if we who are perhaps not wobbling quite as much, or at least at some points, can hold that compassion, can hold that awareness of, I understand this is one scary freaking time.
Mm-hmm.
This is very scary. So I'm at a place at this moment where I'm not as scared and I'm feeling a little more connected to the vibrations of love. So let me hold that frequency of love a little bit more.
Right, yeah.
Let me love within more. Let me love the world more. Let me love you more without any judgment or condition to it.
Yes.
Just because I can.
Tell me this, and I'm asking you this purely from a point of view of someone who wasn't always aware of the power of love. Or, in other words, to me, it was a superficial thing. It was a sexual thing. It was a surface level thing. It was a power thing. Are there preconditions to understanding the level of the love that you're talking about here? In other words, does somebody have to be educated into it? Do they have to have felt it first? Do they have to be born to in a certain country, a certain colour, a certain race, creed, belief system? Are there any preconditions whatsoever?
In terms that you're mentioning, no, I don't think there are. I think love is the frequency of the bottom line, core frequency of who we all are. So in a sense, it's really an allowing. It's a desire to love more than a desire to anything else, perhaps, and to be that love, to then not interfere with it, which means to allow yourself to drop as many of your own personal judgments, doubts, or fears about you in love as you possibly can, to allow you and it to dance together once again.
Right.
So what was it, Hanu, to move more into that loving space? Because you definitely are now. It
was you, Angel Rose.
Because I was so difficult to love.
No, you were easy to love.
You had to kind of work at that one, didn't you?
Yeah. Well, I want to ask you about this because there's also in the world today a lot of people suffering. And they're suffering from on all different levels, from all kinds of different maladies, all different conditions. And when you say that love is all there is, do you think that that suffering will ease as a result of this awareness of love that's happening?
Yeah, I do. We all have a right to the journeys we're on, you know?
Yeah.
And so we may choose to, if I decided to dance in the bog of memory, if you will, we may, I may choose to stay in there for a while longer because there are things I want to understand. But can the wave of love going through the world soften my journey even there? Yes, I think it can. Will I feel it as much? Will I grab hold of it and pull myself out of the bog? Maybe, maybe not.
Right.
It depends on how complete I am with the story.
Right.
But does it soften the journey universally? Yes. And I think that's another thing. I feel very strongly, and this is a bit wooey-wooey of me, but I do feel, we're not alone. If we are all one, and we are all interconnected. We are interconnected whether we live on this planet or any other planet, whether we are from this star system or this galaxy or this whatever. So when the world called planet Earth allows itself to evolve in love more and more and more, it has a ripple effect, like the little pebbles in the pond. When you love, it ripples out into your immediate world. That ripples out into the larger world. And ultimately, it ripples out into the universe itself.
Right. Well, I know that, within the past few months, too, we've started a healing tree on our website. And the purpose of it really is anybody who feels that they need, healing or love, to just put your name on there. And Hanu and I, just devote time each day, to make sure that we recognize these people. And what I'm finding in doing that, it isn't that you're praying for an outcome for them necessarily, but you're just donating love. And it was like you mentioned that if you have extra to give, you donate it. And it's an energy that does affect, and I think we forget how much we all do affect each other. We either strengthen each other or weaken each other. And, a source has certainly said to us, there's so much more you can do energetically for people. And, I view love as not necessarily as an energy, but it's a quality of intention. It's where are you within yourself? And I know for me, I came to a place on my journey where I just wasn't interested anymore in anything that was harmful. And, so like my attitudes towards people are harmless. My thoughts towards people, I'm very careful as to what to do or how to respond to any situation. And I just think that, it's a natural place that you come to when you've, I don't know, how much pain and suffering, Aliana, do we have to experience before we say, all right, I just don't want this anymore. And I think that that's part of where hopefully the world will get, maybe through all this chaos, is it'll say, we've had enough. This is not the reality that we want to keep creating into our future. And certainly the circumstances are being set up for us to be very much more aware of that. And, I keep using the word decision, but I do think a lot of it is a choice in the moment on what you're going to do and how you're going to respond to something. And I think those choices kind of collapse other things. Every time a person chooses, to be more loving or to be more benevolent or harmless in their hearts, that collapses these barriers that we've kind of set up between us. But you are right, everything is interconnected and interrelated, and there's no such thing as us being separate or alone.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. So we also feel, whether we consciously recognize it or not, we also feel when the world is destructing. We feel when people are in pain. I live across from a hospital. I feel it frequently.
Yeah.
So we feel these things, but in the choosing, I think it's also a choosing perhaps to remember that, and maybe that's part of what's going on in the world at the moment as well. Yes, there's this. Yes, there's that. Yes, I could jump on the bandwagon with you and rage and rampage and everything else, but I'm not just that. I am also this. And this is love and kindness and compassion. This is also who I am. So I'm choosing to dip back into that well of remembering of love.
Yes.
And I'm choosing to be a part of that love again. I'm choosing to to stand under the waterfall of love again. I'm choosing to be the aloha.
You're using
I'm choosing to be it.
A very important word there when you say choosing, because that's really what it is all about in every moment. You did say that you wanted to share something with us about something on Sunday, last Sunday.
Yeah, out of all of these little epiphanies and things going on for me, I was looking at what if anything I could do that could, in a small way, sort of, encourage and act on the ball rolling to some degree. And so I listened in, and what I came up with was to pick a day of the week to be a day of love. And I ended up choosing Sunday because most people are off work, at least in the western part of the world. Most people are off work, and most people don't have a lot of social obligations on Sunday. So I put it out on 22 Shangri-La. It's under the heading, it's a page called Will You Join Me? And it's basically that every Sunday we agree that for all of the day we will focus on participating with the energy of love. We will hold that frequency in our hearts. We will bring it forth in our actions. We will, if negative thoughts come through, we will just act. We will be the witness. We'll feel them, and we'll, not clench up in it. It's not a huge battle. It's just, there you are. That is not of me today. I choose the love today instead. And so we're holding the frequency of love for the whole day. We're allowing that love to go out into the world unconditionally in whatever way we choose. We're choosing to interact with people in a kind and compassionate way that day. You know, you're going to love us. We're giving the loved one a hug. You know, we're telling people we love them and meaning it, and literally watering the garden.
Yeah.
So it's just started. This Sunday was the second Sunday. It's young, it's new, it's just started. But I'm basically saying, if it feels right to you, jump on the wagon, share the site with people, and build it. If you want to do it with a group of people because you're already in group, that's wonderful. Grab it. You know, the more who do this, the more we build the energy. The side to this is a side benefit, if you will, is that if you are allowing yourself to intentionally hold the frequency of love, then you're just beginning to take that frequency on just a little bit more and a little bit more.
Well, now,
and the more you take it on, the more normal it becomes, until you get used to being the frequency of love.
I think it's a great idea. And isn't it interesting, though, that our last interview was with a lady by the name of Dr. Susan Shumsky, and she's very much into the chakras. She spent 22 years in an ashram, and she meditated for months on end, and did all kinds of amazing things. But she also connected the chakras to the days of the week. Now, this may be a Sanskrit practice, but she was the one that verbalized it to us. And she mentioned that Sunday was connected to, of course, the sun and the solar plexus chakra. Now, isn't it interesting that you should set aside the Sunday for the Day of Love with the energy that's around that, the vibrance, the giving? The sun is very giving. It gives out light all the time. We're the ones who actually take it and say we need it. And Angel Rose many times has talked about the necessity for us to become sons ourselves, like the Son of God ourselves, so that we radiate light and we radiate the love. So I think it's a wonderful analogy. And
Indeed.
That you should.
I mean,
that's
that's that's the other thing. I mean, that's what did I read somewhere just today about something that was apparently quoted by Thich Nhat Hanh of it's quite possible that there will not be another Buddha, that the Buddha will be within everybody. And I mean, that's the same thing that has been said about the Christ and the Christ consciousness. It's the same thing that's been, to me, it's the same thing that's been identified with the Hopi Nation of, we are the ones we have been waiting for. Well, for my guidance, and my guidance came through last April after, and I just reposted it actually on 22 Shangri-La because it felt important. But last April, I had been paying homage to a man who had been very important in my life, and who had passed away 5 years before, and that's Satya Sai Baba. And so I had quite a moving day paying homage and connection. A lot of things were brought back to remind me of why I was here and what my primary message was about and had always been about. And so the day was full of lots of poignant moments and tears and everything else. The next morning I woke up and literally woke up with this small, I call it a tiny poem, but this small verse running through my mind and my heart. And so I quickly grabbed a pen and wrote it down, put it at the end of the article, and left it there. Had a conversation with somebody 2 days ago, and this came to mind again, so I brought it and put it on 22 Shangri-La. And it's basically saying, it's taking it again to that next notch, and it's saying, you are the love you seek, you are the peace you desire, you are this, you are that, you are the one you have been waiting for. And I think that fits in very much to you are the emanation of love.
That's a great place to end now, isn't it, Ahanu? It's been a wonderful show. So, Aliana, once again, just give your website out to people and anything else you want to say about how they can contact you or anything like that.
For sure. It's www.22, the number, Shangri-La, SHANGRILA.com. You can email me at aliana@22shangri-la.com. And the page is headed up with the other page headings, and it's called Will You Join Me? And just click on it. It talks about why Sunday and what's Sunday, and there are share buttons below, so please, if you like it, share them. Enjoy.
We will certainly.
We
yes,
will, absolutely.
Yeah,
So
great. Well, thank you for raising this, because in doing so, you're also spreading that word. You're increasing that vibration around the place. You're bringing it into people's awareness, into their consciousness, and you are pioneering a lot of this wonderful work. And we praise you and we honor you for that. 22shangri-la.com.
Thank you for having me as well.
thank you, Aliana.
I wish you much love. I wish
And
you
the
all
same
much
to
love.
you. And we will speak to you again soon and continue the wonderful mission.
That sounds perfect. Take good care.
Bye-bye.
You have been listening to Ann Gale Rose and Ahanu on World of Empowerment Radio, your station for practical spirituality in a changing world.